Vitamin D is important for balancing calcium and phosphorus in the body. The difficult thing with vitamin D is that there's no agreed upon. Most of the research shows, and again, it's not looking at.
Hi everybody and welcome to the Kidney Coach YouTube channel. I am Fiona, naturopath and co-founder of the Kidney Disease Solution and Kidney Coach. And today I'm joined by the wonderfully talented and beautiful Emily Cahill. So Em, do you want to, maybe we'll start with a bit of an overview of what vitamin D is, because the word itself saying vitamin D, but it's not a vitamin.
That's
so
right.
Yes, maybe we'll start there and go forth.
Yeah, so vitamin D isn't actually a vitamin at all. It's actually what's called a prohormone. So what that is it's a nutrient that gets converted into a hormone in the body. It's also fat soluble, which means it's stored in our fat cells in the body. And we primarily get it from 3 different places. So we get a little bit from food, although there's not many foods that have very high amounts of vitamin D. So for most people, they're going to get the majority of their vitamin D from the sun. When our skin's exposed to the sun, the UV rays is converted from cholesterol into vitamin D, which is a whole sort of process that has a number of different steps in the body. And then the third place is from supplements. So people who supplement with vitamin D, that's sort of the third main source.
And what about, I know you touched on the parathyroid, but let's get into the parathyroid and the link to the kidneys and why vitamin D, why we monitor it, why that's a test that, you and I would be asking any patient with kidney disease to go and have to check their vitamin D levels. Why is that?
Yeah, so vitamin D is important for balancing calcium and phosphorus in the body. So it helps with increasing the absorption of calcium from food and also phosphorus as well. And one of the things that we see often in people with kidney disease is this secondary hyperparathyroidism. So our parathyroid hormone as well is involved in that process, and again, balancing calcium and phosphorus. And when we don't have enough vitamin D, one of the things that can happen is our parathyroid hormone gets a bit hyperactive. And again, that's to do with our calcium and phosphorus and having high phosphorus levels. But vitamin D can be used to help reduce our elevated parathyroid hormone as well. But it's important to, when you're testing vitamin D, that you're not just looking at it in isolation. Because, as I said, it can also affect and influence calcium levels. It can influence phosphorus levels as well in the blood.
So if someone has been diagnosed with, say, stage 3 or 5 chronic kidney disease, and they go and have a test and their vitamin D comes back as low, I know what some of the nephrologists and specialists are saying is to avoid vitamin D. Is definitely some of the advice I've heard my patients given, because they're worried about the increase in calcium and then the calcium phosphorus ratio that vitamin D so governs. So what is your advice to people? What do you think people with kidney disease should have their vitamin D levels sitting around? And then let's talk about supplementation, if you think that's something that's valuable for chronic kidney disease patients.
Yeah. So the difficult thing with vitamin D is that there's no real agreed upon optimum vitamin D level. And a lot of the research that, say, doctors will often base their levels on, or certainly pathology companies will also base what they say is deficient or insufficient with vitamin D, is based on the research about osteoporosis.
Yes.
So the research on osteoporosis shows that, potentially lower vitamin D levels are, protective, and that's sort of where those recommendations come in. Whereas I think for a lot of other processes in the body and a lot of other diseases, we actually need slightly higher vitamin D levels than what, a doctor may recommend or what you may see on your pathology tests again. I guess it is one of, like everything, it's individual as to where someone's vitamin D levels should sit, particularly because we need to look at things like calcium and phosphorus at the same time. But most of the research sort of agrees that definitely needs to be, now when I talk about optimum levels, depending on where you live will depend on the, what do you call it? The reference range and what it's being, I guess, counted. So, say in Australia, we look at vitamin D as in nanomoles. And then in the US, it gets looked at in nanograms. So the numbers are quite different. So just to avoid any confusion. But I guess, most agreed upon level is it certainly needs to be above 75 nanomoles, which is about 30 nanograms. And really, I think for it to have its best effect in the body, we want it to be above, that sort of 100 nanomoles. So, if I had someone who had, say, elevated phosphorus and, maybe their calcium was a little bit out, I might be a bit more conservative in how high I want their vitamin D to be. But certainly, generally speaking, above that sort of 100 mark. Most of the research shows, and again, it's not looking at its effect on things like calcium and phosphorus, but that, toxic levels of vitamin, you don't sort of get into vitamin D toxicity until, you're in this sort of couple of hundred nanomole and higher. So, there is sort of a bit of a range there, but remembering that vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin. So unlike, say, something, if you're taking vitamin C or some B vitamins, if we, are taking sort of more than we need, then we will just excrete it. With vitamin D, we'll store it in our body. And that's why it can potentially become toxic because, we're not getting rid of the excess.
Thanks, Emily. So if you've liked this episode from The Kidney Coach, make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you put any comments down below, I will get back to you. I check that most days. If there's any videos you want Emily and I to make, any topics that you really want to know about when it comes to kidney disease, definitely let us know. We're always after any extra great ideas because otherwise Emily and I sit and rack our brains about what you guys would like to hear. Thanks again, Emily. I always appreciate your time. And until next time, be well, stay well. And if you need any more information, head over to www.kidneycoach.com. There's lots of great articles on there. And there is one on vitamin D. I'll put the link below. All right. Till next time. Bye.
Bye.